The presence of fear is not a sign of weakness. It is not a signal to stop, and it is certainly not an excuse to retreat. In fact, if you feel no fear, you are likely standing still. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for the day they feel ready. They wait for the knot in their stomach to untie itself. They wait for the trembling in their hands to cease and for the voice in their head to stop whispering about all the ways they might fail. But that day never comes. The 99% live in a perpetual state of waiting, anchored to the dock of comfort, watching the horizon while others sail toward their dreams. They believe a dangerous lie, the lie that successful people are fearless. They see the entrepreneur launching a bold new venture, the athlete stepping onto the field, or the leader speaking to thousands, and they assume those individuals possess some biological immunity to anxiety. They couldn't be more wrong. The difference between the 99% and the exceptional 1% is not the absence of fear, but the relationship they have with it. You are here because you are tired of being held captive by your own hesitation. You are here because you realize that your potential is being suffocated by the very things you are afraid to do. This book is not about overcoming fear in the sense of making it disappear. It is about weaponizing it. It is about understanding that the adrenaline, the racing heart, and the uncertainty are actually the high-octane fuel required for your ascent. If you are looking for a gentle pat on the back or a promise that everything will be easy once you just believe in yourself, you are in the wrong place. This is a manual for the uncomfortable. This is a blueprint for those willing to do the work while their heart is pounding against their ribs. We are going to diagnose exactly why you have been stalled at the starting line and how most people use fear as a reason to settle for mediocrity. We will dismantle the myths that have kept you small and replace them with a hard-nosed, action-oriented philosophy. You are the protagonist of this journey, and the villain is not the external world or the lack of opportunity. The villain is the version of you that prioritizes safety over growth. Every day you have a choice. You can listen to the internal critic that demands you play it safe, or you can recognize that fear is the compass pointing toward exactly what you need to do next. Success is not found in the absence of the flinch. It is found in what you do in the seconds after you flinch. We are going to move from a state of paralysis to a state of relentless pursuit. You will learn to recognize fear as the indicator of importance. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't be afraid. The fact that you feel the weight of the moment is proof that you are standing on the edge of something significant. Stop waiting for the fear to leave. It is a permanent passenger on the road to greatness. Your job is not to kick it out of the car, but to ensure it never gets its hands on the steering wheel. It is time to stop thinking, stop planning, and stop making excuses. It is time to do it scared. Chapter 1: The Anatomy of the Flinch. To master fear, you must first understand its biological roots. Most people view their anxiety as a character flaw or a sign of personal inadequacy. They feel the physical sensations of fear, the shallow breathing, the tightening of the chest, the sudden urge to look away, and they interpret these as a command to stop. They believe their body is telling them that they are in danger. In a primitive sense, they are right. Your brain is wired for a world that no longer exists. For thousands of years, the flinch was a survival mechanism. It kept your ancestors from being eaten by predators or falling off cliffs. The amygdala, that ancient part of your brain, is still scanning the environment for threats. The problem is that in the modern world, the amygdala cannot distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a public speaking engagement. It cannot tell the difference between a physical threat to your life and a social threat to your ego. When you think about launching that business, asking for that promotion, or sharing your true ideas, your brain triggers the same fight-or-flight response that it would use if you were being hunted. Most people are slaves to this ancient hardware. They feel the flinch and they obey it without question. They assume that if they feel uncomfortable, something must be wrong. You must realize that the flinch is actually a sign of life. It is your body priming itself for action. When your heart rate increases, it is pumping oxygen to your muscles and your brain. When your senses sharpen, it is preparing you to process information at a higher level. The exceptional individual understands that the flinch is a physiological resource. Think about the athlete before a major competition. They feel the same jitters as the person who is about to give up. The difference is in the interpretation. The person who stays average calls it anxiety and uses it as a reason to shrink. The person who achieves greatness calls it excitement and uses it as a reason to explode into action. You need to begin observing your flinch objectively. Instead of letting it overwhelm you, look at it as a data point. Notice when your throat tightens. Notice when you start to procrastinate by checking your phone or cleaning your desk. These are all manifestations of the flinch. Most people spend their lives avoiding the flinch at all costs. They stay in jobs they hate, relationships that have soured, and routines that provide zero growth because those things are safe. They are familiar. There is no flinch in the familiar, but there is also no life in the familiar. Stagnation is a slow death. Every time you avoid a challenge because you are afraid of the flinch, you are essentially telling your brain that you are incapable of handling the modern world. You are reinforcing your own limitations. To break this cycle, you must start seeking out the flinch. You must treat it like a muscle that needs to be trained. The more you lean into the moments that make you want to recoil, the more you desensitize yourself to the paralyzing effects of fear. You will never stop flinching, but you can change how long you stay in that state. Most people flinch and stay down for weeks, months, or years. You are going to learn to flinch and then move before your brain has a chance to talk you out of it. This chapter is about reclaiming your power from your biology. You are not your impulses. You are the consciousness that can witness those impulses and choose a different path. The flinch is just energy. It is raw, unguided power. Without your direction, it turns into anxiety. With your direction, it turns into drive. When you feel that initial surge of hesitation, recognize it for what it is: an internal notification that you are approaching the boundary of your current self. To cross that boundary, you must move through the flinch, not around it. Most people wait for the path to be cleared of all obstacles and for the weather to be perfect before they start walking. You must be willing to walk through the storm, knowing that the wind and rain are what will forge your character. The flinch is the price of admission for a life of consequence. If you aren't flinching, you aren't playing for high enough stakes. From this moment on, when you feel that familiar tightening in your gut, I want you to smile. I want you to recognize that you have found the door to the next level of your life. The average person sees that door and turns around. You are going to walk straight through it. Chapter 2: The 99% Trap. Look around you. Most people are living lives of quiet desperation, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they have fallen into the trap of the 99%. This trap is built on the foundation of safety and social proof. The 99% are constantly looking to their left and their right to see what everyone else is doing before they make a move. They seek consensus. They want to be sure that if they fail, they will have plenty of company in their failure. They are terrified of standing out, not because they don't want to be successful, but because standing out requires them to face the fear of judgment. The 99% would rather be comfortably average than uncomfortably exceptional. They have been conditioned from a young age to avoid risk. The education system, the corporate world, and even well-meaning family members have all whispered the same poisonous advice. Play it safe. Don't make waves. Wait your turn. This conditioning creates a massive mental barrier that prevents action. Most people are more afraid of being embarrassed than they are of being unfulfilled. They would rather spend 40 years in a cubicle doing work that doesn't matter than spend 1 year taking a risk that might result in public failure. You have to understand that the 99% are not your peers. They are a cautionary tale. Their fear is contagious. When you start to show ambition, when you start to talk about doing things differently, the 99% will try to pull you back down. They will tell you that you are being unrealistic. They will point out all the reasons why your plan won't work. They aren't doing this because they care about your well-being. They are doing it because your courage shines a light on their own cowardice. If you succeed, it proves that they could have succeeded too if they had only been willing to do it scared. To escape the 99% trap, you must stop seeking validation from people who have settled for less than they are capable of. You cannot expect someone who has never left the harbor to give you advice on how to navigate the ocean. Most people are looking for a guarantee. They want to know exactly how things will turn out before they commit. But life offers no guarantees, only opportunities. The 1% understand that the lack of a guarantee is exactly why the reward is so high. If success was guaranteed, everyone would do it, and the value would be zero. The fear you feel is the barrier to entry. It is the filter that keeps the 99% out. Most people see the barrier and think it is a sign to stay away. You must see the barrier and realize that everything you want is on the other side of it. The 99% trap is also fueled by the illusion of someday. Most people believe that there is a future version of themselves that will be braver, smarter, and more prepared. They say, I will start that project when I have more money, or I will change my life when things settle down. This is a delusion. Things never settle down. Life is a series of disruptions and challenges. The future version of you who is fearless is a ghost. The only version of you that can act is the one that exists right now, in the midst of the chaos and the fear. The 99% are also addicted to consumption as a way to avoid the fear of creation. It is easy to watch others, to critique others, and to consume what others have made. Creation, on the other hand, is terrifying. When you create, you put a piece of yourself out into the world to be judged. You risk being told that you are not good enough. Most people choose the safety of the spectator's seat. They spend their evenings scrolling through social media, watching the highlights of other people's lives and feeling a vague sense of inadequacy that they soothe with more consumption. You must choose the arena. The arena is dirty, it is loud, and it is full of risk, but it is the only place where life is actually lived. The 99% trap is comfortable, and that is why it is so dangerous. Comfort is the enemy of growth. It is a slow-acting poison that kills your ambition. To move toward the 1%, you must become comfortable being uncomfortable. You must learn to value your own respect more than the approval of the crowd. The 99% are obsessed with being liked. You must be obsessed with being effective. This requires a radical shift in your social circle and your information diet. If you are surrounded by people who are afraid to take risks, you will eventually adopt their worldview. If you are consuming media that reinforces the idea that you are a victim of circumstances, you will remain a victim. You must intentionally insulate yourself from the mediocrity of the majority. This doesn't mean being arrogant. It means being protective of your mindset. You have a finite amount of energy and focus. Don't waste it trying to fit in with a group that is going nowhere. The 99% will always be there, waiting for you to join them in the safety of the shadows. They will offer you excuses, distractions, and the warm glow of the status quo. You must refuse the offer. You must decide that being misunderstood by the 99% is a small price to pay for the freedom of the 1%. Every time you act in the face of fear, you are digging a tunnel out of the prison of the majority. It is hard work, and it is lonely work, but it is the only work that matters. Chapter 3: Redefining Discomfort. We have been taught to see discomfort as a negative state. From the time we are infants, we are conditioned to seek the path of least resistance. If something hurts, we stop. If something is difficult, we look for an easier way. While this serves us in terms of physical survival, it is a disaster for personal development. You must undergo a complete psychological overhaul regarding how you perceive discomfort. Most people view discomfort as a sign to retreat. You must view discomfort as a sign of progress. Think of it like a GPS for your potential. If you are feeling comfortable, it means you are in familiar territory. You are repeating patterns you have already mastered. You are not expanding. The moment you feel that friction, the intellectual strain of learning something new, the social anxiety of a difficult conversation, the physical exhaustion of pushing your limits. You have arrived at the frontier of your growth. Most people hit that frontier and immediately turn back toward the center of their comfort zone. They wonder why their lives feel stagnant, yet they refuse to spend even 10 minutes in a state of unease. You must understand that growth and comfort cannot coexist. You cannot become the person you are meant to be while clinging to the person you currently are. This transformation requires heat, and heat comes from discomfort. Imagine a piece of iron being forged into a blade. It must be placed in the fire, it must be struck by the hammer, and it must be plunged into the cold. To the iron, this process is violent and agonizing, but without the fire and the hammer, it remains a useless lump of metal. Most people are lumps of metal complaining about why they aren't sharp. They avoid the fire because the fire is hot. They avoid the hammer because the hammer is heavy. You must learn to love the fire. You must learn to invite the hammer. When you feel that sense of dread before a task, you need to reframe it. Instead of saying, "I am afraid of this," say, "My expansion is happening now." This is not just wordplay. It is a fundamental shift in how your brain processes stress. When you label discomfort as something positive, you change your physiological response to it. You move from a defensive posture to an offensive one. Most people spend their lives trying to minimize stress. They want a life that is smooth and predictable. But a smooth life is a small life. Think about the most significant moments of your life so far. Were they moments of ease and relaxation? Or were they moments where you were pushed to your absolute limit? Most likely, the moments you are most proud of were the ones that were the most uncomfortable at the time. The 1% understand this paradox. They don't just endure discomfort, they actively seek it out. They know that if they aren't feeling challenged, they are dying. They use discomfort as a metric for their daily success. If they haven't felt the flinch by noon, they know they aren't playing a big enough game. You can start small with this. You don't have to leap into the abyss on day one. Start by doing the things you usually avoid. Take the cold shower. Have the conversation you've been putting off. Wake up an hour earlier than you want to. These small acts of intentional discomfort build your tolerance. They prove to your subconscious that you are the master of your impulses, not the other way around. Most people are ruled by their whims. If they don't feel like doing something, they don't do it. This makes them fragile. When life inevitably throws a real crisis their way, they have no foundation of discipline to lean on. They crumble because they have never practiced being uncomfortable. You, however, are going to build a fortress of resilience. By choosing discomfort on your own terms, you become immune to the fear of it. You begin to realize that discomfort is temporary. It is a wave that peaks and then recedes. Most people are so afraid of the peak that they never even get in the water. You are going to learn to ride the wave. You will find that on the other side of discomfort is a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more capable than you ever imagined. The burning sensation you feel when you are pushing yourself is the sound of your old limitations being incinerated. It is a beautiful sound. Most people think they need more motivation to do hard things. They are wrong. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are fickle. You don't need motivation. You need a new relationship with discomfort. You need to decide that your goals are more important than your momentary feelings. When you stop negotiating with your comfort, you become unstoppable. The 99% are constantly negotiating. They say, I'll do the work, but only if I feel good, or I'll take the risk, but only if it's not too scary. The 1% have ended the negotiation. They do the work because it needs to be done, regardless of how they feel. This is the definition of discipline: the ability to do what you said you were going to do long after the mood in which you said it has left you. Discomfort is the price of the life you want. Stop trying to get a discount. Pay the price in full, every single day, and you will eventually own a life that most people can only dream of. Chapter 4: The Weaponization of Anxiety. Anxiety is often portrayed as a disorder, a glitch in the system that needs to be suppressed or medicated away. While clinical conditions exist, for most people, what they call anxiety is simply misplaced energy. It is power without a purpose. When you feel that buzzing in your veins, that restlessness in your mind, and that tightness in your chest, you are experiencing a massive surge of potential energy. Most people take this energy and turn it inward. They use it to fuel a cycle of worry and rumination. They think about everything that could go wrong. They play out worst-case scenarios on a loop. This is like having a high-performance jet engine and using it to power a blender. It is a waste of immense proportions. You are going to learn how to weaponize that anxiety. You are going to take that raw, vibrating energy and point it directly at your goals. The physiological difference between anxiety and excitement is almost non-existent. In both states, your heart rate goes up, your breathing becomes shallow, and your focus narrows. The only real difference is the story you tell yourself about those sensations. If you tell yourself you are anxious, you will seek to hide and protect yourself. If you tell yourself you are excited, you will seek to act and exert yourself. Most people are experts at telling the wrong story. They feel the energy and they immediately label it as something that must be stopped. You must do the opposite. When the anxiety starts to rise, you must welcome it. Say to yourself, this is the power I need. This is the energy that is going to propel me through this task. This is the weaponization of your internal state. Think of anxiety as a pressure cooker. If there is no outlet for the steam, the pressure builds until it becomes destructive. Most people are walking pressure cookers. They have all this ambition and energy, but they have no outlet because they are too afraid to act. So the pressure turns into chronic stress and mental exhaustion. The 1% use their work as the outlet. They channel every ounce of that nervous energy into their projects, their training, and their execution. When you are fully engaged in a challenging task, anxiety vanishes because there is no longer any excess energy to fuel it. It is all being consumed by the action. This is why the best way to deal with anxiety is not relaxation, but intense focus. Most people try to meditate their way out of the fear of taking action. Meditation has its place, but it can often be used as another form of procrastination. You cannot think your way out of a problem that requires action. You cannot relax your way into a life of achievement. You must use the anxiety as the starting gun. When you feel the jitters, that is the signal to go. If you are afraid of a phone call, make it immediately while the adrenaline is still high. If you are afraid of starting a project, write the first sentence while your heart is still racing. Do not wait for the feeling to subside. The feeling is the fuel. Use it while it is hot. Most people wait until they feel calm to start, but by then, the energy is gone. They end up doing mediocre work because they are in a low energy state. You want to operate at the peak of your physiological arousal. That is where your best work happens. That is where you are most alert, most creative, and most resilient. You must also realize that the world reacts to the energy you project. If you are vibrating with suppressed anxiety, people will sense your hesitation and they will trust you less. But if you take that same energy and project it as focused intensity, people will be drawn to you. They will see it as passion and confidence. The weaponization of anxiety is a superpower because it means you no longer have bad days. On the days when you feel calm and centered, you can work with steady precision. On the days when you feel anxious and on edge, you can work with explosive power. Most people are victims of their moods. You are the commander of your energy. You must also stop the habit of rehearsing failure. This is what most people do when they feel anxious. They spend hours visualizing all the ways they might stumble. This is literally training your brain to fail. Instead, use that mental energy to rehearse your response to challenges. Don't visualize a perfect world where nothing goes wrong. Visualize a world where things go wrong and you handle them with poise and strength. Use the anxiety to identify potential pitfalls and then immediately pivot to creating solutions. This turns a passive, draining state into an active, empowering one. The 99% are paralyzed by the what-ifs. The 1% use the what-ifs as a checklist for preparation. When you weaponize your anxiety, you become dangerous to your competition and your own limitations. You stop being a person who is haunted by fear, and you become a person who is fueled by it. The very thing that used to keep you in bed with the covers over your head will now be the thing that drives you out of bed at 5:00 a.m., ready to take on the world. It is the same fire. You just finally decided to stop letting it burn you and started using it to power your engine. Chapter 5: Action as the Only Antidote. There is a fundamental truth that the 99% refuse to accept. You cannot think your way into a new way of acting. You must act your way into a new way of thinking. Most people are addicted to the planning phase. They spend months or even years researching, preparing, and strategizing. They believe that if they just have enough information, the fear will go away. They think that once they have the perfect plan, they will feel confident enough to start. This is a trap. Analysis paralysis is just a sophisticated form of cowardice. It is a way to feel productive without taking the actual risk of failure. You can read every book on business, but you won't be an entrepreneur until you sell something. You can study every technique on public speaking, but you won't be a speaker until you stand in front of an audience. Action is the only antidote to fear. Fear thrives in the space between the thought and the deed. The longer you wait between having an idea and executing it, the more time you give the internal critic to build a case against it. You must close the gap. The 1% have a bias for action. They understand that a flawed plan executed with intensity today is worth more than a perfect plan that never leaves the notebook. When you act, you gain data. You learn what works and what doesn't. You gain the kind of knowledge that can never be found in a book or a course. But more importantly, action changes your internal chemistry. The moment you take that first step, your brain shifts from threat detection to problem solving. The fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes secondary to the task at hand. Most people are waiting for a sign or a feeling of certainty. Certainty is a myth. There is no such thing as a sure thing. The only certainty you will ever have is the certainty of your own effort. You must learn to move in the dark. Think of action as a flashlight. It only illuminates the next few feet in front of you. Most people want to see the entire path to the destination before they take a step. They want to know exactly how they will get from point A to point Z, but life doesn't work that way. You only see the next step once you have taken the current one. Every time you act in the face of uncertainty, you are building self-trust. You are proving to yourself that you can handle the unknown. This is the foundation of true confidence. Most people have fake confidence based on their past successes or their current circumstances. If those things change, their confidence collapses. True confidence is the knowledge that no matter what happens, you will take action. It is the belief in your ability to figure it out as you go. You must also stop equating busy work with action. Most people are experts at being busy while avoiding the one thing they are most afraid of. They will answer emails, organize their files, and attend meetings all day, but they won't make the sales call or write the code or have the difficult conversation. They are using minor actions to hide from the major action. You must identify the lead domino, the one action that, if taken, makes everything else easier or unnecessary. Usually, this is the action you are most scared of. That is your target. You must attack that target first before you do anything else. This is how you build momentum. Momentum is a powerful force that makes fear look small. Once you are moving, it takes more energy to stop than it does to keep going. Most people never experience the power of momentum because they are constantly stopping and starting. They take one small step, get scared, and then retreat for a month. They are always starting from zero. You must commit to daily, relentless action. Even if the action is small, it must be consistent. Small actions repeated over time create massive results. This is the law of compounding. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a decade. They get frustrated when they don't see immediate results and they quit. You must have the discipline to keep moving when the excitement wears off and the fear remains. The 1% don't stop when they are tired or scared. They stop when the job is done. You must become a person of execution. Your word to yourself must be law. If you say you are going to do something, do it immediately. Don't give your brain time to negotiate. Don't give the 99% version of you a chance to speak. Just move. The world is full of brilliant people who never did anything because they were waiting for the right moment. The right moment is a fairy tale. There is only this moment. This moment is messy, it is imperfect, and it is likely very scary. Perfect. That means it is the exact right moment to act. Chapter 6. Building your courage muscle. Courage is not a personality trait. It is a muscle. And like any muscle, it will atrophy if you don't use it, and it will grow stronger the more you challenge it. Most people treat courage as something they either have or they don't. They look at others and say, "I wish I was that brave." They don't realize that the person they are admiring has spent years doing things that made them uncomfortable. You are currently in a state of courage atrophy because you have spent too much time staying within the lines. To build your courage muscle, you must engage in intentional, graduated exposure to fear. You don't start by bench pressing 500 pounds. You start with the bar. The same is true for your mindset. You must find small ways to be brave every single day. Most people avoid small discomforts, and in doing so, they make themselves incapable of handling large ones. If you can't handle the minor social friction of sending an honest email, how are you going to handle the pressure of leading a company through a crisis? You must look for opportunities to exercise your courage. This could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting when you have a different opinion, or trying a new skill that you are likely to be bad at initially. The goal is not to be successful in these small acts. The goal is simply to do them. Each time you act despite feeling a flinch, you are adding a plate to the bar. You are teaching your nervous system that the feeling of fear is not a reason to stop. Most people are terrified of the failure of the small. They are so concerned with their image that they won't even take small risks where the stakes are low. You must be willing to look foolish in the short term to be formidable in the long term. The 1% understand that every no they receive, every awkward interaction they endure, and every small mistake they make is just a rep in the gym of courage. They aren't seeking the win as much as they are seeking the experience of the resistance. When you seek resistance, you stop being a victim of it. Think about how a muscle grows. It is actually damaged through exercise. The fibers are torn, and then the body repairs them to be stronger than they were before. Courage works the same way. Every time you do something that scares you, a part of your old, fearful identity is torn away. It is painful, but it is necessary for the new, stronger identity to take its place. Most people are trying to protect their current identity. They want to stay exactly as they are while having a better life. It is impossible. You must be willing to let the fearful version of yourself die so that the courageous version can be born. This requires a level of self-honesty that most people lack. You have to admit where you are being a coward. You have to look at the areas of your life where you are settling and admit that you are doing so because you are afraid. Don't call it patience or being realistic. Call it what it is, fear. Once you name it, you can train it. You must also realize that courage is contagious. When you start acting with bravery, you change the dynamic of every room you enter. People will be intimidated by you, but they will also be inspired by you. They will start to wonder why they are playing so small. Most people are looking for a leader to tell them it's okay to be brave. By training your own courage muscle, you become that leader. But remember, this training never ends. There is no point where you are finished being courageous. As your life expands, the challenges will get bigger. The stakes will get higher. The weight on the bar will increase. The fear you feel when you are trying to reach the next level will be just as intense as the fear you feel now. The only difference will be your capacity to handle it. The 1% aren't less afraid than you, they are just stronger than their fear. They have built so much courage muscle that they can carry the weight of their fear without it crushing them. You must stop waiting for life to get easier and start working to get stronger. Most people are praying for a lighter load. You should be praying for a stronger back. Every day is an opportunity to train. Don't waste it by seeking comfort. Seek the weight. Seek the challenge. Seek the flinch. And when you find it, lean into it with everything you have. This is how you become someone who doesn't just survive fear, but thrives because of it. Chapter 7. Silencing the Internal Critic. Inside your head, there is a voice that is dedicated to your stagnation. It is the voice of the 99%, the voice of your ancestors' survival instincts, and the voice of every person who ever told you that you weren't enough. We call this the internal critic. Most people treat this voice as the voice of truth. They hear a thought like, "You're going to fail," or "Everyone will laugh at you," and they accept it as a factual statement. They don't realize that the internal critic is a liar. Its only goal is to keep you safe, and in the modern world, safe means stagnant. The internal critic doesn't want you to be happy or successful. It wants you to be invisible so that nothing can hurt you. To silence the critic, you must first learn to detach from it. You must realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. Most people are so identified with their internal monologue that they can't see the difference between their identity and their anxiety. You must create space. When you hear that voice telling you why you shouldn't act, respond to it like you would a heckler at a comedy show. You wouldn't take a heckler's advice on how to live your life. So why take the advice of a voice that only speaks when you are trying to grow? The internal critic is loudest when you are on the verge of a breakthrough. It uses fear as its primary weapon because it knows that fear is the only thing that can stop you. Most people listen to the critic and they retreat. You are going to listen to the critic and use it as a confirmation that you are on the right track. If the voice is screaming at you to stop, it means you are doing something significant. It means you are challenging the status quo. The 1% have learned to use the internal critic as a reverse indicator. If the critic is quiet, they know they are playing it too safe. If the critic is loud, they know they are in the arena. You must also realize that the internal critic is a coward. It only attacks you when you are vulnerable or when you are trying to do something new. It never has anything constructive to say. It doesn't offer solutions, it only points out problems. It doesn't provide a path forward, it only warns of the dangers. Most people spend their lives trying to argue with the critic. They try to prove it wrong with logic. This is a waste of time. You cannot reason with an instinct. The only way to silence the critic is through action. When you act despite the voice loses its power. Each time you do the thing the critic said you couldn't do, you are weakening its influence. You are building a track record of evidence that contradicts its lies. The 99% are waiting for the voice to stop before they act. They want to feel worthy or confident first. But worthiness and confidence are the results of action, not the prerequisites. You must act while feeling like an imposter. You must act while the voice is telling you that you are a fraud. This is the identity shift. You are moving from being someone who obeys their thoughts to someone who directs their actions. The internal critic will try to use your past failures as evidence for why you should be afraid. It will remind you of every mistake you've ever made. Most people let their past define their future. They believe that because they failed once, they are a failure. You must understand that your past is just a library of lessons, not a life sentence. The only reason the critic brings up your past is because it has no power over your future unless you give it permission. You must develop a warrior mindset toward your own internal dialogue. You don't tolerate a roommate who talks down to you, so why tolerate a mind that does the same? You must replace the critic's lies with your own truths. Not empty affirmations, but hard-won principles. When the voice says, "You aren't ready," you respond with, "I will learn as I go." When the voice says, "This is too risky," you respond with, "Stagnation is the real risk." This is not about being positive. It's about being accurate. The critic is biased toward the negative. You must be biased toward the possible. The 1% aren't people who don't have negative thoughts. They are people who don't let those thoughts dictate their movements. They have an internal bureau of standards that is higher than the critic's bureau of safety. Your potential is a vast, unexplored territory, and the internal critic is the gatekeeper trying to keep you in the village. You have to be willing to walk past the gatekeeper, even as it yells at you to turn back. Eventually, the voice will become a whisper. It will never go away entirely, but it will lose its ability to paralyze you. You will hear it, you will acknowledge it, and then you will do exactly what it told you not to do. This is the ultimate form of internal freedom. The 99% are imprisoned by their own minds. You are going to be the one who holds the key. Chapter 8: The Failure Paradox. One of the greatest fears that stops the 99% is the fear of failure. They see failure as a terminal event, a sign that they have reached their limit. This is the failure paradox. The more you try to avoid failure, the more you ensure a failed life. A life without failure is a life without growth, without risk, and without achievement. Most people are so afraid of the sting of a mistake that they never put themselves in a position to win. They don't realize that failure is not the opposite of success. It is a vital component of it. Think of failure as a feedback loop. Every time something doesn't work out as planned, you are being given precise information on how to improve. You are being shown where your weaknesses are. Most people take this information and use it to beat themselves up. They view it as a personal indictment. The 1% take this information and use it to calibrate their next move. They view failure as an essential cost of doing business. If you aren't failing, you aren't experimenting. If you aren't experimenting, you aren't evolving. You must shift your goal from not failing to failing faster. The person who can endure more failures and learn from them more quickly will always beat the person who is trying to be perfect. Perfectionism is just fear in a tuxedo. It is a way to delay action because you are afraid of being judged for anything less than a perfect result. But perfection is a moving target that you will never hit. Most people are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, and the perfect conditions. They never start because perfection is impossible. The 1% embrace the messy middle. They are willing to launch when things are 70% ready and fix them on the fly. They know that the lessons learned in the heat of the struggle are worth more than 1,000 hours of theoretical planning. You must learn to fail forward. This means that even when things go wrong, you are still closer to your goal than you were before you started. Most people fail and then retreat back to where they started. They lose all their momentum. You must fail and then immediately pivot to the next action. Use the frustration and the pain of the setback as fuel. The fear of failure is usually just a fear of what other people will think. Most people are more concerned with their reputation than their results. They don't want to be seen as someone who tried and failed. They would rather be seen as someone who didn't try at all. You must realize that the people whose opinions you are afraid of are usually the 99% who are too scared to do anything themselves. Their judgment is a reflection of their own limitations, not yours. The 1% don't care about the opinions of people who aren't in the arena. They only care about the respect of those who are also taking risks. You must also realize that failure is temporary, but regret is permanent. If you try and fail, you have a story, a lesson, and a chance to try again. If you don't try because you are afraid, you have a hole in your life that can never be filled. Most people are haunted by the ghosts of what could have been. They spend their later years wondering if they had what it took. You must be willing to find out, even if the answer is not yet. The failure of an idea is not the failure of the person. You must decouple your self-worth from your external results. If a project fails, it doesn't mean you are a failure. It means that specific strategy didn't work. This detachment is what allows the 1% to stay in the game long after others have quit. They don't let a loss break their spirit because they know their spirit is not for sale. You must build a high tolerance for rejection and setbacks. Treat them like weather. It rains sometimes. You don't stop living your life because it's raining. You just put on a coat and keep walking. Most people treat a setback like a hurricane that levels their entire world. You must be the person who can weather any storm. Every time you fail and get back up, you are becoming more resilient. You are becoming harder to stop. The 99% are looking for the easy win. You are looking for the hard-earned mastery. Mastery requires a mountain of failures to serve as its foundation. Stop trying to avoid the mountain. Start climbing it, one mistake at a time. The view from the top is only accessible to those who were willing to fall along the way. Chapter 9. Radical Responsibility. The final barrier to doing it scared is the habit of making excuses. Most people are experts at identifying external factors that are preventing their success. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their boss, their lack of time, or their lack of luck. This is a victim mindset, and it is the ultimate form of fear. By blaming something outside of yourself, you are giving away your power. You are saying that your life is not in your hands. This is comforting because it means your failure is not your fault, but it is also a death sentence for your potential. You must adopt a mindset of radical responsibility. This means accepting that you are 100% responsible for your life, regardless of the circumstances. Even if something is not your fault, it is still your responsibility to handle it. The 99% are waiting for the world to change so that they can feel safe. The 1% change themselves so that they can handle the world. Fear loves excuses. It uses them to justify your hesitation. When you say, "I don't have enough time," what you are really saying is, "I am afraid to prioritize this." When you say the market is too crowded, what you are really saying is, "I am afraid to compete." You must stop lying to yourself. Every excuse you make is a brick in the wall of your own prison. You must become a ruthless investigator of your own bullshit. When you find yourself making an excuse, stop and ask, what am I actually afraid of? By identifying the underlying fear, you can address it directly instead of hiding behind a convenient story. Radical responsibility is the ultimate antidote to fear because it puts you back in the driver's seat. If you are the problem, then you are also the solution. If your current state is the result of your own choices and your own hesitations, then you have the power to change it by making different choices and taking different actions. Most people find this terrifying because it means they have no one else to blame for their unhappiness. But the exceptional individual finds this incredibly empowering. It means that your destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of will. You must stop waiting for permission. Most people spend their lives waiting for someone in a position of authority to tell them they are ready. They wait for the okay from their parents, their teachers, or their peers. You must realize that in the modern world, permission is not given, it is taken. You give yourself permission. You decide that you are ready. You decide that your ideas are valuable. The 1% don't wait for a seat at the table, they build their own table. This requires a level of audacity that the 99% find offensive. Let them be offended. You aren't here to make people comfortable. You are here to make an impact. Radical responsibility also means taking ownership of your environment. If you are surrounded by negativity and fear, it is your responsibility to move. If you are lacking the skills you need, it is your responsibility to learn them. Most people complain about their situation as if they are a tree that is rooted in the ground. You are not a tree. You can move. You can change your inputs. You can change your associations. You can change your habits. The fear you feel is often just the discomfort of taking ownership. It is easier to be a passenger and complain about the driver than it is to take the wheel and navigate through the storm. You must choose the wheel. Every time you take responsibility for a challenge, you are expanding your sphere of influence. You are proving that you are a person who gets things done, regardless of the obstacles. This builds an undeniable sense of agency. You begin to see yourself as a force of nature rather than a victim of it. The 99% are constantly asking, why is this happening to me? The 1% are constantly asking, what can I do with this? This shift in perspective changes everything. It turns every obstacle into an opportunity for growth. It turns every fear into a call to action. You must stop waiting for the right time. The right time is whenever you decide to take responsibility. The world doesn't owe you anything. It doesn't care about your potential or your dreams. It only reacts to your actions. By taking radical responsibility, you are telling the world that you are no longer a spectator. You are a participant. You are a creator. You are a leader. And you are going to do it scared because that is the only way it gets done. Chapter 10: The Evolution of the Fearless Mind. We have reached the point where you must understand that this is not a one-time event. Doing it scared is not a mountain you climb once and then relax. It is a way of being. It is a lifelong evolution. Most people want a hack or a secret that will make them fearless forever. There is no such thing. The fear never goes away. You just get better at playing the game. The 1% understand that the goal is not to reach a state of permanent comfort, but to reach a state of permanent growth. This requires a commitment to the long game. Most people are addicted to short-term results. They want the reward without the struggle. They take one risk, don't see an immediate payoff, and then give up. You must have the vision to look past the immediate discomfort and see the person you are becoming. Every time you act despite your fear, you are reinforcing a new identity. You are becoming a person who is defined by their courage rather than their anxiety. This identity is your most valuable asset. It is the one thing that no one can take away from you. Even if you lose your money, your job, or your status, you still have the knowledge that you are someone who can act in the face of fear. This is true security. The 99% have external security based on their possessions and their social standing. When those things are threatened, they are terrified. You have internal security based on your own character. You are unfazed by the external world because you know you have the internal tools to rebuild. The evolution of the fearless mind also requires a commitment to consistency. Most people are capable of greatness in short bursts. They can be brave for a day or a week. But true success is built on the mundane, daily discipline of doing the work when you don't feel like it. It is the courage to be consistent when no one is watching and there is no immediate applause. The 1% don't rely on grand gestures. They rely on relentless habits. They know that the overnight success stories they see in the media are actually the result of years of hidden struggle. You must be willing to be a nobody for as long as it takes to become a somebody. This requires a different kind of courage, the courage to endure the boredom and the uncertainty of the journey. You must also learn to embrace the evolution of your fears. As you grow, the things that used to scare you will become easy. You will look back at your current fears and realize how small they were. But you will also face new, larger fears. This is the sign of a life well lived. If you are still afraid of the same things you were 5 years ago, you haven't grown. You want to be graduating to higher level fears. From the fear of speaking up to the fear of leading a team to the fear of changing an entire industry. The 1% are always seeking the next level of fear because they know that is where the next level of reward lies. You must also learn to forgive yourself. You will have days where the fear wins. You will have days where you retreat into comfort and make excuses. Most people use these days as a reason to quit. They say, "I knew I couldn't do this," and they give up. You must learn to treat these moments as temporary lapses. Acknowledge them, learn from them, and then get back into the arena immediately. Don't waste time on guilt or shame. Those are just more tools the internal critic uses to keep you stagnant. The fearless mind is a resilient mind. It is a mind that can take a hit and keep moving forward. You are building a life of consequence, and that requires you to be tougher than your circumstances. The 99% are fragile. You are anti-fragile. You don't just survive stress, you grow because of it. This is the ultimate evolution. You stop seeing fear as a threat and you start seeing it as a partner. You realize that the fear is there to help you, to sharpen you, and to push you toward your best self. You have all the tools you need. You have the understanding of the flinch, the knowledge of the 99% trap, the ability to redefine discomfort, and the power to weaponize your anxiety. You know that action is the only antidote and that courage is a muscle you must train. You have the keys to silence your internal critic, the wisdom to embrace failure, and the strength to take radical responsibility. The only thing left to do is to live it. Every day, every hour, every moment. Don't wait. Don't plan anymore. Just start. Do it scared. Do it now. The world is waiting for the version of you that refuses to be stopped. The closing. You are now standing at the crossroads of your own future. You have listened to the principles, you have felt the weight of the truths, and you have seen the contrast between the 99% who stay safe and the 1% who dare to be great. The information you have received is not a passive gift. It is a burden of responsibility. You can no longer claim ignorance. You now know that every time you hesitate, you are choosing to be average. You know that every time you make an excuse, you are voting for your own mediocrity. This realization may feel heavy, but it is the most liberating weight you will ever carry. It means the power is entirely in your hands. The transformation we have discussed is not about a superficial change in your circumstances. It is about an identity-level shift. From this moment on, you are no longer a person who is waiting to feel ready. You are a person who acts regardless of how they feel. You are a person who sees fear as fuel, discomfort as growth, and failure as feedback. This shift is permanent. Once you see the world through the lens of the "do it scared" philosophy, you can never go back to the comfortable illusions of the majority. The 99% will continue to live in the shadows of their own potential, whispering about someday and waiting for the perfect time. Let them. You have a different path. Your path is paved with the adrenaline of the arena. Your path is marked by the scars of your failures and the strength of your resilience. Imagine the version of you that exists 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years from now if you apply these principles every single day. Imagine the level of confidence you will possess when you no longer fear the flinch. Imagine the impact you will make when you are no longer paralyzed by the judgment of others. Imagine the freedom of knowing that you can handle anything life throws your way. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is your inevitable destination if you stay the course. The feeling of self-respect that comes from doing what is hard is greater than any external validation the world can offer. You don't need their applause. You have your own internal conviction. You don't need their permission. You have your own undeniable results. The journey will be difficult. There will be moments of intense doubt. There will be times when the fear feels overwhelming and the voice of the critic is screaming in your ear. In those moments, I want you to remember one thing: the fear is not the enemy. The fear is the compass. It is telling you exactly where the growth is. It is showing you the way to your highest self. Don't try to make it go away. Don't try to hide from it. Welcome it. Lean into it. Use it. You were not meant for a life of safety. You were meant for a life of significance. You were not meant to be a spectator in your own life. You were meant to be the hero. The hero is not the one who isn't afraid. The hero is the one who goes into the cave specifically because the dragon is there. The dragon is your fear, and the treasure it guards is your potential. It is time to enter the cave. Stop listening to this and start doing the work. The next step is waiting for you. It's scary, it's uncertain, and it's exactly what you need to do. Do it scared. Do it now. Become unstoppable.